like to spend a little time with you this morning discussing some of the points of our mobile application and how they can help you plan maintenance jobs and manage your team better, as well as track assets, inventory, and other related items to your maintenance operation. We'll be taking a higher level overview here, but at the end we'll allow time for some personal questions you might have. So without going any further, let's go ahead and start to go through the presentation here. One of the main points of, well, basically any CMMS is to help you be more efficient with production by eliminating downtime, and hence the quote that you see on the screen here now. Obviously, the more time spent on preventive maintenance, the less time you'll have in reactive maintenance dealing with problems down the road. So that's been our goal with the creation of the Proteus CMMS MMX application and its affiliated app that we'll be looking at here today. We have coverage of all three major mobile platforms. So that would be your Apple devices, your Android devices, and the Microsoft Surface Pro, which is actually kind of more of a computer than a mobile device that you're more familiar with. But we do have apps that are native to all three of those platforms, with coverage of almost the entire range of modern OSs that are out there for these various platforms. Basically, anything that you can do in our Proteus MMX browser application, you can also do within the mobile device. They do work hand in hand. The main point of the mobile application is obviously to provide mobility for your workers out in the field who are, doing the hands-on work, and it allows you to have much more accurate and on-time reporting of when these jobs are done. One of the main points that you see at the top of the screen here, management of work orders with time tracking and reporting, is that using the application, you can actually track the hours spent performing a task down to the minute with a start and stop timer. So that's going to include, anything from travel time, collecting parts, anything of that nature. It tracks the time down to the minute if you so desire. From the app, you can also create new work orders. So an example of this, again, would be if there's a technician on the scene, let's say they're doing a preventive maintenance work order and they notice that something is awry with the machine they're looking at, and they know that there's going to be an issue with that later on, they can go ahead and create a work order on the spot through the application and either act on that immediately or at a later date. Same idea with tracking problems before they occur. You can record the runtime of the machine that you're looking at. You can record the state of the machine if you wish to do an inspection, which is this point here. And you can also basically issue a work order immediately and prevent the problem from occurring. Inspections are another facet of the application. That's a different type of work order where you're stepping through various tasks that are not necessarily related to a work order, but that need to get done because of regulations or certifications or things of that nature. So you can have a record that either these measurements were recorded, the condition was recorded, and then you'll have that as a record for later date for your certifications. The barcoding function of the application is also very useful. Using barcodes, you can search a piece of equipment, view all of its history, and actually issue a new work order based on the barcode. This would be assuming that you have barcodes on your assets. So a workflow example of that would be a technician comes up to a machine, notices that something might be amiss, scans the machine's barcode with the app, and at that point generates a new work order for it. Asset tracking, a little bit on that. What that entails is essentially the ability to record runtime data on a machine. So if a machine has to run a certain number of hours between a PM occurrence, an easy and quick way to track that is through this app. So instead of manually typing in the machine number, they can scan the barcode, type in the current meter value, and then through Proteus itself, provided you have a PM set up, you can automatically activate a work order based on that runtime value. Another important point is work order management. And what this is referring to is the ability to accurately track your technician's time, as well as to assign work orders to them. Using Proteus CMMS, you can, on the fly, issue a work order to a particular technician, and that work order will then show up within their mobile app, and they'll be able to take action on that when they're available. Same thing with a reassignment. If there's a technician on the field that reports that they might not be able to get to a particular work order, you can then reassign that job to somebody else who has a mobile device as well, and they can then go perform the task in their stead. Service requests, this would be related to the case of where, let's say you have a technician, but they're not authorized to create a work order, or it has to go through some type of an approval process before the work order can be generated. In that case, they can issue a service request. And what that does is it takes the description of the issue, anything related to that, any other details that the technician or individual can think to include, and it gets put into a queue in Proteus CMMS. And at that point, somebody can go into Proteus CMMS, the main application, review, and decide whether or not that's an actionable item that they want to create a work order for. We also have several inventory-related functions within the application. The first one is inventory transactions, and what that's referring to is taking stock of your materials in a storeroom. So let's say, for example, every month or so, you have to do a cycle count of all the parts in your warehouse. Using the app, you can go through your warehouse, make an accurate count of what's on your shelves, and on the fly do adjustments to quantity based on what's actually physically available on those shelves. So instead of writing everything down on a piece of paper and entering it later, you can do it on the fly and save a lot of time that way. The second inventory function is receiving, and what that's related to is purchasing. So through Proteus, if you issue a purchase order, you can give this app to the folks in your warehouse, and when those goods come in, they can use the app to automatically receive the items that have come in. Again, that uses barcode or manual entry if you'd prefer just to type in the values. So they scan the box, for example, do a count of what's in it, and then immediately the quantity in your stockroom will be affected by the amount of the parts received. Okay, so that's kind of a high-level overview of the main functions of the application. Obviously, there's a lot more details and things you can do with this as well, and hopefully we'll be able to cover those in the following slides. So here's some of the main points of what this app will allow you to do. As I mentioned before, the immediate distribution of work orders is one of the primary benefits. So instead of having every work order printed on a piece of paper, scattered throughout your maintenance office, where they can get lost or accidentally discarded, there is no way to do that with the mobile app. They are on that device until the technician says, I am done with this job. Okay, so that electronic record keeping is one of the primary benefits of using the mobile application. And right along with that, the enabled live access to work order data will allow both the technician and the maintenance manager to see exactly what stage a work order is at. So let's say the maintenance manager distributes a work order to 3 individuals. They have 3 separate tasks on the work order. Each person who has responsibility on that job will be able to see the state at which the other person has completed the job. And as a maintenance manager, you as well will also be able to see the status of those work orders. Reduce travel time for field technicians. Here again, because everything is on the mobile device, there's no printing of paper, there's no printing of parts lists or anything. All of that is included on the device. So again, if materials are required to service the machine that they're assigned to work on, they can just take their mobile app, either on their phone or tablet, to the storehouse. And the storehouse personnel can then check those parts out to the work order, and that part of the job is done. There's no more running back and forth for parts between the job site, the storehouse, etc. Reduced paperwork processing. Again, big deal here. Everybody's trying to get away from using paper. So by using the mobile app, you reduce the records of the physical records that you would have to keep on hand in the form of paperwork, because all of that history of all the work done on the mobile app is stored electronically within Proteus MMX. So there you're not having to store all of that in a huge filing cabinet. Sorry about that. Better work order management. Again, more points that we had kind of discussed earlier. No lost work orders. Chargebacks. You can turn those around much quicker if everything's done electronically without having to go through the sign-off process on sheets of paper. Technicians have direct access to CMMS, so where that comes into play is, let's say that there's a technician out there who has to look at the history for a machine. They want to see what was done on that machine in the past. Through the app, they can directly look at the history of what was done. So no filing through paper records or looking through old binders to find the maintenance history of a machine. It should be, available right there for them to look at. Okay. More up-to-date data, obviously, goes with the points we were just talking about. And it also reduces the need for labor corrections, being that the technician has the ability to start and stop a task with a timer, as opposed to adding up in their head the amount of hours that it took to complete a job. It's a much more accurate way of recording their time on a particular work order. Okay. So what that all means is that those minutes and hours that are saved, both by running back and forth the storeroom, sitting down trying to figure out time on work orders, finding lost paperwork, all of that equals time. And of course, time equals money. Every hour a technician spends looking for a piece of paper or trying to get a part that they need or forgot, that's money that is lost to the organization as a whole. And that is one of the main goals that we're trying to prevent by using the app, is to allow them to have all this information right in front of them so they can take care of it immediately without having to wait. So if you do the math, by using mobile, let's say a technician saves 1 hour per day. That equates to obviously 5 hours a week, 20 hours per month, up to 30 shifts a year. And here again, if you know your technician's hourly rate, all you have to do is multiply those hours times how much they're making to see how much is saved, how much is this mobile going to be worth. And I think you'll see it's quite a bit. Just by using the benefits that I described on the previous slides, you're going to be saving quite a bit of money. The next couple slides are just some of the screenshots from the mobile application itself, so you can get an idea of what it looks like. We've tried to keep it as simple as possible so that there's not as much of a training or learning curve for your technicians. And we're always improving things and making things better, but it's right now set to be somewhat familiar to those people who might use regular mobile apps like the messenger type of applications. We've tried to keep it similar to those type of interfaces. This is a work order summary screen. So if I was a technician and I was looking at this, I would be looking at all of those work orders that have been assigned to me. So for example, this particular job is a demand maintenance work order. So it's been categorized low when time is available, something in the paint room to get fixed. There's also a couple PMs in here for, actually, no PMs in this one, but preventive maintenance would show up the same way as a work order that needs to get done. And once a job's completed, it'll be displayed with a green check mark here. So that means they don't have to look at that again. It's all ready to go. And at that point, the maintenance manager will be able to see that in CMMS as well and close the work order out as it is completed. So by tapping one of these work orders on the mobile device, they're going to be taken into this screen, which is some more of the details of that work order. You can see at the top here we have several tabs next to detail. And it's not really a tab, but basically it's a different section of the program. We have tasks and labor. We have a way to enter the parts needed. We have a tools menu to show any tools that are required. And there's also a way to add attachments, and I'll show you that in a couple slides down the road here. But basically, you're looking at the essential information for this work order. Description would be what needs to get done, required date, if there is one. Generally, for emergency or demand work orders, the required date is always soon as possible, so we fill that in automatically. The work started date, so that'd be when the actual service began. If the job is done, you have completion date, so that'd be when the work is 100% done by everybody assigned to the work order. And some various downtime fields here as well. You can enter a generic labor cost and material cost if you're not tracking those things individually. If you just want an overall number, you can just type it in here. And some other fields down below assigned to, which would be the person in charge of this work order, and if it's applicable, the requester, the person who requested the work. Now, if you take a look at these slides, you notice up here at the top, we have the highlight on the task and labor. So what that is you're looking at the tasks and labor that have been assigned to this work order. Now, by default, as I'm logged into the app, this would be my responsibility, so I'd be seeing my tasks on this job. So the important thing I wanted to kind of make note of down below here is we have the start and stop timer. So using this function, you can record again down to the minute exactly how much time a job took. So let's say you're starting out at home base and you have a job in the field that's 20 minutes away, and you want to record that 20 minutes of travel time. You can start this task, and it will start recording by the time you set out. And all the time spent commuting to the job, doing the job, and completing it will be recorded until you hit stop. And then those hours will automatically be calculated and added to the overall time it took to complete the job. This is the stockroom part screen on the mobile work order as well. From here, you can scan in a new part that you've used, or if this is a pre-planned preventive maintenance work order, you'll see lists of parts already in place because those are anticipated usages on the work order. And here the technician can enter the quantity required and the quantity allocated. So if there was 5 required to complete the job, typically there are 5 allocated. And then the unit cost will also fill in based upon what you have in your inventory. So if I have a part, let's say a washer, that I've added to the work order, and I have quantity allocated of 5 for that washer with a unit cost of, let's say, 5 cents. When I close this work order, the application will multiply the quantity of 5 times the unit cost of 5 to come up with the total parts cost for the work order. So that's just a little background on how the parts are used in the system. But the main thing I want to show here is just the ability to add a part either based on choosing from a list or using the scan button that you see here to the right. So you can scan the part in or just search from a list and find it. This is kind of neat. This is actually the attachment screen. Using this, the technician can actually take a picture of a problem that is occurring, and it gets uploaded to Proteus CMMS. So here again, let's say somebody's doing an inspection of a machine and they find, I don't know, a worn belt, okay? What they can do is use the camera on the device that they have and take a picture of that issue. And it'll immediately be uploaded here as a preview, and then once the save button is clicked, it becomes a permanent part of the work order. So again, as a maintenance manager, you can go in and see the actual physical picture of what the problem is, as opposed to having to type a bunch of words. So as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that's kind of the philosophy we use with this too. So we're using some of the built-in tools of the app, of the mobile device itself to great advantage by using the camera. This is just an overview of some of the other functions related to barcode. We have these 3 categories: search asset, search work order by asset, or search work order by location. And basically that's going to allow your technician, again, to help find the jobs related to, based on where he is, what he needs to get done. So if a person's looking for a job that they have and they know it's for a particular asset, they can scan the asset and it will bring up all the results below that have a work order for that asset. So let's say, again, they're out in the field and they know that there's a particular job that needs to get done for an asset. They have some time and they want to take care of it. They can scan that asset, bring up all the jobs related to that asset, and perform the work. We can also do a search work order by location. So it's the same idea. If a technician's in a particular geographical area, they can scan a barcode related to that area, and it'll bring up all work orders in that particular zone. So again, it's a way to maximize people's time. If they happen to be in a particular area, you can do a scan and go do work in that area. Okay.
Well, thanks, Jacob. I think as everyone can see, the mobile application provides technicians with the ease of completing preventive and domain workers directly in the field as work is occurring. So I think if there's any questions, please use the box on the GoToMeeting sidebar. If you have any questions for Jacob, I'm sure he'll be willing to answer any of it.
We're happy to take your questions.
How does it provide the records of the regulators?
How does it provide the records of the regulators? Would that be the technicians or the supervisor? We do, for example, record the times for each work order performed and tie that to the assets. So if regulators are looking for record that a particular job was done, they'll be able to go ahead and view that through Proteus's history module. So at any time, you can go ahead and print those off for verification.
Because David came back and said it's for the proof needed to meet regulations on safety and other proofs.
Right, and that would come with our history module. So you're doing the work on the mobile device, and once it's completed and closed, that becomes part of the permanent history in Proteus. So you'll have all records of any safety or, as you say, other proofs that jobs were done on time to a particular asset. And you can look back through history based on a query of a time period for a particular asset, for a particular location. Number of different ways you can look back at that, but that is one of the primary things we do is record that history so you have that proof.
Okay. So there's nothing else coming through, but if you, oh, here comes another one.
Okay.
So it's asking what is the price estimated when you have the Proteus MMX and how much space would it take on the mobile device?
Well, I can answer the space question. It's not much. It's, I think, around 100 megabytes, if I'm not mistaken, for the app itself. So that's not a whole lot considering, what's available today. It's not going to require any extravagant hardware or anything of that nature.
Price-wise, usually how we work is after a webinar, we will have one of our representatives reach out to you, and anything prices-wise or software-wise, you're more than welcome to speak to them directly. And then a next question that came in is, what is the difference of barcode to Q boxes?
Well, we can actually read either one. So if you have a QR code, it's going to operate the same way. It's used as an identifier to the Proteus CMMS mobile app. So your Q code would be, let's say the Q code's the asset number. It would still read that Q code and work the same way as a barcode. And that'd be something, as we help implement the system with you, that'd be something we would review with you and go through to make sure it all works to your specifications.
Okay. If there's no further questions, we'd like to thank everybody for attending today, and we will be sharing a link to access this video afterwards. If there's any other questions or anything else you want to know, please email us directly at webinars@eaglecmms.com. Jacob, if you can move to the last slide, I'm sure we can show everybody that contact information. There's our website if you want to go visit some other areas, other features. Feel free to ask some questions about the software itself. If you want any recommendations on how it would work within your facility, you're more than welcome to speak to one of our representatives, and we can work with you to customize it to your needs. But I think that's all from our side. Thank you, Jacob, for your time.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Appreciate your listening to me.
Thank you and have a wonderful afternoon.
Take care.